Hey everybody, my name is Gage Anderson. This is a brief walkthrough of the Chat Memex application, a generative AI chatbot that provides sources with its responses and has low hallucinations. This app uses the Pinecone vector store along with the LangChain framework to call the OpenAI GPT 3.5 model. Let's get into the architecture. So this right here is the architecture. It's on the GitHub repo. So as you can see, this app is hosted in AWS. So the front end is in an S3 website bucket with a CloudFront distribution. So when the user pings the URL, they're routed through Route 53, and then the distribution of the site is served through CloudFront. Then they sign in, leveraging the Cognito user pool. And then once they're into the website, then the actual backend calls are done through this API gateway. So say they call with a prompt asking a question to the LLM. So what this does is it sends the request through the API gateway to a Lambda function inside a private subnet in an AWS VPC. So this Lambda function takes in the prompt and then it calls the Pinecone vector store first. So what this does is it takes in the prompt and says, what are the most relevant items in the vector store to the prompt that the user provided? It chooses the top 3 of those, and then it provides that back to the Lambda function. So once those citations are in the Lambda function, LangChain calls the OpenAI GPT 3.5 model with an engineered prompt. So this prompt looks something like, given the user's conversation history and given the citations just provided, with the prompt, give a reasonable sounding answer without hallucinating at all. Now there's some more intricacies to that, but that's the general idea of the prompt engineering. So then the OpenAI model provides a response back, and the Lambda function finally parses that response for the sources, and then returns that to the end user as a format that they can display. So going into the actual application, so this is the application. It's live. It's a React application. As you can see, it's deployed to the public internet. So here's the current session chat history. We'll be adding to that more in a little bit. Here is an interesting question generator right here where it says you could ask. So right here it pulls 3 different sources from the vector store and then uses generative AI to come up with an interesting question you could ask whoever those authors were. So this is already a pretty interesting question. As you can see, it pulled The Art of War by Sun Tzu from the vector store and then asked the author himself how you would apply that in a non-military situation, which is a fairly interesting question to ask. Below that, we have our box to ask a question to the vector store. So we can optionally put in the question that it just generated, or we could reload the question. For now, I'm going to throw it a softball and ask, why is AI an important technology? And we'll see what it spits out. Technology, there we go. All right, so it'll take roughly 15 to 30 seconds to think on this. So what it's doing in the background is it's taking in that prompt, passing it to the Lambda function, and the Lambda function is getting the most relevant chunks of text from the vector store that have to do with that prompt, and then it's putting in those chunks of text as parts of a prompt that it's then passing to the OpenAI language model as part of the query. So let's take a look at the response. Here's my question. Why is AI an important technology? AI is important because it has the potential to improve healthcare and education, among other things, yada, yada, yada. And then it gives sources down here. These are parsed from the response. So it gives this book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, and Impromptu, Amplifying Your Humanity Through AI. So it gives 2 different sources for why this is an important question. So let's ask it another question about AI. Let's leverage what we've already done. So we asked, why is AI an important technology? When will it start replacing a large amount of workers? How about that? So this time, the prompt will have some previous conversation history to work with when constructing its response. So right here, I asked it a fairly vague question, when AI will start replacing a large amount of workers, and it looks at the documents and says there's no specific timeline. So rather than hallucinating an answer, it says it doesn't know while still providing sources. So this behavior right here lets us understand more about how the AI is actually reasoning to its answer and reduces the chances that it will return harmful information. So that was a brief walkthrough of the Chat Memex web application. Please reach out if you have any further questions. Thank you very much.